She was laughing, not just a normal laugh, the kind that makes your blood boil. That loud, fake kind of laugh that people use when they want you to know they're in control. She stood right there in her beige power suit, clutching a clipboard, like it made her queen of the world, while the movers loaded the last piece into the truck. A blue wheelchair. My daughter's wheelchair. Gone. I stood frozen on the porch, my hands shaking, trying to understand what just happened. I hadn't even been served a notice, nothing. Just came back from picking up groceries to find strangers on my lawn and my little girl, Sarah, sitting on the grass with her face buried in her hands, sobbing like the world had ended. "You can't do this," I shouted. That made her turn. Karen, president of the neighborhood HOA. She tilted her head, grinning like I was a child who didn't know the rules. "Actually," she said, flipping through her papers with dramatic flair, "I can. Section 14A, no unauthorized medical equipment on public display. This isn't a hospital. Public display? It was on our porch, covered, behind the gate. Sarah used it to get to therapy every day. I could feel the neighbors peeking through their blinds. None of them said a word. Not one." Karen walked up, to me, heels crunching on the gravel like gunshots. "I've warned you twice, third time's not a warning." "You never warned me," I said, my voice barely steady. "We don't even have an active HOA contract anymore. That expired last year." Her smile dropped for a second, just for a second. Then it came back even wider. "Doesn't matter. I made a few calls. It's active now." I looked back at the truck. They were closing the doors. Everything was gone. Sarah's therapy mat, her speech tablet, even her favorite stuffed elephant she kept during sessions. I felt something break inside me. And in that silence, Karen leaned closer and whispered, "If you people can't follow rules, maybe you should find another place to live." "You people?" That's when I knew. This wasn't about rules. It was personal. And she had no idea who she was messing with. I didn't say a word. Not yet. I just picked Sarah up from the grass, held her tight, and walked back into the house, with her tears soaking into my shirt. My mind wasn't just racing, it was on fire. But I knew one thing. Reacting emotionally wouldn't help. Karen thrived on chaos. She wanted me to lose it, to scream, to make a scene, so she could call the cops and play the victim. But I had a different plan. That night, after putting Sarah to bed, without her usual bedtime therapy routine, which left her restless and frustrated, I opened a locked cabinet in my study and pulled out a small black binder. Inside were papers that Karen didn't know existed. Deeds, letters, email records, all legal. All signed. See, what Karen didn't know is that when I bought this house 3 years ago, I had it written into the purchase agreement that I would not be subject to any newly formed HOA without my explicit written consent. That clause was signed, stamped, and filed with the county. She couldn't touch me, but she did. And that made everything she did illegal. Still, I needed more than documents. I needed evidence. So the next morning I walked over to my neighbor Bill's house. Vietnam vet, quiet guy, keeps to himself, but he saw everything. I knocked gently. After a minute, he opened the door, holding his coffee and looking surprised. "You okay?" "No," I said. "But you might be the only one who can help me, prove what really happened yesterday." He didn't hesitate, just nodded once. "Come in." Turns out Bill had been testing a new security camera system, military-grade stuff his son sent him. And guess what? One of the cameras pointed, straight at our driveway. We sat down and played the footage. There she was, Karen, marching in with her clipboard, pointing at the porch, instructing the movers like a general. No court order, no sheriff, no paperwork handed to me, just entitlement and a smug grin. Then came the part that made my jaw clench. On the footage, one of the movers hesitated at the wheelchair. He actually said, "Are you sure this is okay? It looks like medical stuff." And Karen said, clear as day, "They don't belong here anyway. Just take it." I paused, The video. Looked at Bill. He was already dialing. "Who are you calling?" I asked. He looked up at me, stone-faced. "My son, county sheriff." By the time the sheriff arrived, Karen was already outside, bossing around a landscaper about the grass height code, as if the lawn police had deputized her personally. I watched from the porch, coffee in hand, as Bill's son, Sheriff Mason, pulled up in an unmarked cruiser and stepped out slowly. Karen didn't recognize him. Not at first. She strutted right over, heels clicking like a warning bell. "Excuse me, can I help you? This is private HOA property and I'm the acting president." Mason didn't flinch. He just showed his badge. "Ma'am, I'm investigating an illegal seizure of private medical property from this residence. Are you the one who authorized yesterday's removal?" Karen blinked, then laughed. "Oh, this is about that wheelchair? Look, I'm protecting community standards. He violated code, section 14A. I don't need permission to act on HOA regulations." "But you do," Mason said calmly. "Need a court order to remove medical equipment from private property, especially when the homeowner has legal documentation excluding him from HOA authority." Karen's face went pale. Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. For a second, she looked like someone had slapped her without touching her. "Do you have written proof the HOA is active?" he asked. She pulled out the same clipboard. "Right here." He took it, scanned it, then pulled a folded paper from his own folder. "This is the property agreement filed with the county recorder. It clearly states the homeowner opted out of any future HOA. And your signature isn't even on these HOA forms. They're fake." "Fake?" she shrieked. "I had them printed by the board." "There is no board," Mason said. "We checked. It was dissolved last year. What you did was impersonate legal authority and authorize the theft of medical equipment belonging to a disabled minor." I could see it happening in real time. The unraveling, her lips twitching, her fingers fumbling, the twitch in her eye as the control started slipping from her grip. I didn't mean to," she began. Mason cut her off. "We've got it on camera. You gave direct orders to remove that equipment. You even told the movers, quote, 'They don't belong here anyway.'" Karen took a step back. "This is a misunderstanding. I was doing what's best for the community." That's when he said it. "No, ma'am. You were doing what's best for yourself." He turned to me. "Sir, I'll need you to file an official statement, and then we'll start the recovery process. As for her," Karen started to walk away quickly, like she could just vanish into her perfectly trimmed bushes, but Mason wasn't done. "Ma'am, don't make this harder than it already is." She froze. Then, for the first time, she didn't say a word. Later that evening, while I was helping Sarah with a makeshift therapy session using some printed flashcards and a worn-out plush toy, there was a knock at the door. I expected more paperwork or maybe another officer, but it was the delivery truck. Same movers. Only this time, their eyes wouldn't meet mine. One of them stepped forward, scratching the back of his neck. "Sir, we were told to bring everything back. The sheriff said to return it exactly as it was. We're really sorry. We didn't know." I nodded, said nothing, just opened the door wider. Piece by piece, they carried it all back in. The wheelchair, the speech device, the therapy cushions, even the little elephant. Sarah squealed when she saw it and grabbed it with both arms like she hadn't seen her best friend in years. It was the first time all day I'd seen her smile. I signed the return sheet, closed the door, and let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. Then, as if the universe was giving me one last twist for the day, my phone buzzed. It was a message. From a number I didn't recognize, but the preview line made me pause. "You don't know me, but I'm Karen's husband." I opened the message. "I just wanted to apologize. I saw the body cam footage from the officer and the footage your neighbor recorded. I had no idea how far she'd gone. She always talked about keeping the neighborhood pure, but I didn't think it was like this. I'm leaving her. I've already filed the papers. My brother's a lawyer. You'll probably be hearing from him too. She might have broken federal ADA laws." I read it twice. It felt strange, getting an Apology from someone who hadn't even been there, but also a sort of justice I hadn't expected. Not courtroom justice, not the kind you see in viral clips with handcuffs and headlines. Real justice. The kind that changes lives. And I realized something. Karen hadn't just lost a legal battle. She'd lost her family. And all because she couldn't mind her own business. Word spread fast. By morning, the whole neighborhood knew. Some pretended they didn't see the sheriff car yesterday. Others waved awkwardly like nothing had happened. But a few came over, quietly, carefully. One brought cookies. Another offered to mow my lawn, just to help out. It wasn't kindness. It was guilt. Karen's house stood dark and quiet. No porch lights, no car. Just her perfect lawn and a plastic sign that now looked more pathetic than proud. Neighborhood excellence starts here. A week passed. Then the real bomb dropped. I was cleaning the garage when I heard tires screech. Not fast, not panicked, controlled, like someone had practiced this moment. A black SUV rolled up and parked across the street. Out stepped a woman in a navy suit, sunglasses, and a federal badge clipped to her hip. She walked straight up my driveway. "Mr. Raines?" I nodded. She didn't even introduce herself before saying, "We're opening a case on Karen Whitmore. There's evidence of impersonating a government entity, violation of ADA protections, and theft of medical equipment. We also believe she accessed private HOA records illegally to forge reinstatement documents. Mind if we ask a few questions?" "Not at all," I said. "Want a coffee?" She gave a slight smirk. "I've heard about your coffee. Bill talks about it a lot." That's when it hit me. This wasn't just any federal agent, she was connected. And Karen had triggered something far bigger than a petty HOA war. By the time she left, I'd given her everything. The paperwork, the camera footage, even the old emails Karen had sent trying to get neighbors to vote out the troublemakers. That night, as Sarah played quietly with her toys, I looked out the window and saw Karen's husband pull up with a truck. He didn't knock, just packed a few boxes into the bed and drove off. No drama, no shouting, just silence. But what came the next day made it clear this wasn't over. Because taped to my door, where that fake HOA notice used to be, was a plain envelope. Inside was a single sheet of paper. "You made a mistake. I know people." No name, no return address. But I didn't need one. Because underneath those words was a copy of my daughter's medical schedule. I didn't panic, not on the outside. I read that paper 5 times, then locked the doors, checked the windows, and turned every camera on the property to full record mode. I even added motion alerts to my phone. But inside, my stomach was ice. This wasn't just Karen being petty anymore. This was a threat, a line crossed. She had crossed it with a smile, and now she was doubling down with a whisper in the dark. The next morning, I went straight to the sheriff's office. Mason met me outside before I even walked in. "We saw it," he said. "Bill showed us. The envelope, the note, the schedule, it's being treated as a criminal threat now. Can you protect her?" I asked, looking back toward my car where Sarah sat humming to herself in the back seat, headphones on, blissfully unaware. Mason nodded. "We're pulling her medical center security footage, and we're assigning patrol around your property. C-War 7 until we locate Karen. But you need to know something." "What?" "She's gone." "Gone where?" He shrugged. "No car, no credit card activity, no phone pings. Her husband doesn't know. Her family says she needed a break. But someone helped her vanish. And that someone may be the reason she had your daughter's schedule." I stood there, the sound of a distant siren fading behind me. Then Mason added, "We found something else. Remember the fake HOA paperwork she used?" "Yeah?" "It was printed on a city-owned printer, from inside a municipal building. We traced the IP. Whoever helped her and works for the city planning department." Just like that, the game changed again. This wasn't Karen acting alone. This was corruption, real corruption. And now I wasn't just fighting a rogue HOA queen with a grudge. I was up against a network. But the thing they didn't know, they thought I was just a single dad trying to protect his kid. They didn't know who I used to be. And I was about to remind them. That night, after putting Sarah to bed, I opened a box I hadn't touched in years. Buried beneath old uniforms, medals, and sealed files was my clearance badge. Department of Defense, Cyber Operations Division. Yeah, that's what Karen didn't know. Before I was just a dad, I tracked domestic cyber threats. My job was to find bad people hiding inside the system. People like her. I powered up an old encrypted laptop, one that had never been connected to our home network. I routed it through a secure VPN, accessed a few still active backdoors in public databases, and started digging. Within minutes, I had access to the internal schedule logs for the city planning department. Every login, every printer job. Guess whose ID came up the same hour Karen's fake HOA papers were printed? Greg Sullivan, senior zoning analyst, known, donor to the HOA beautification project, friend of Karen's husband, and currently on probation for unauthorized access to residential documents in a completely different district. Gotcha. But that wasn't even the best part. Because when I scanned Greg's digital footprint deeper, I found an email, sent from a private encrypted server, to Karen's alias address just a day before Sarah's equipment was taken. They'll cave. He's just a single father. Hit him where it hurts. No one questions the HOA. That was enough. I printed it, stamped it, packaged it with every piece of evidence I had, security footage, HOA exemption docs, digital logs, and sent it all directly to Mason and his federal contact. Then I waited. And the wait wasn't long. The next morning, a different kind of black SUV rolled down the block, feds this time. 2 agents knocked on Greg Sullivan's door while half the neighborhood watched from behind curtains. 10 minutes later, he was in handcuffs. Karen was still missing. But her support was falling, apart piece by corrupt piece. And Sarah? She was safe. She didn't understand everything going on. But when she smiled up at me that morning and said, "Elephant, stay home now," I knew she felt it too. The danger wasn't gone, but it was scared. A week later, I got the call. It was Mason. "She's in custody," he said. "Caught trying to board a private jet out of state, used an alias. Had 3 burner phones, cash, and a flash drive." Was she armed? No, but she wasn't alone. Greg's brother was with her, used to work in city enforcement. We're investigating how deep this goes, but you're clear. She's being charged with federal crimes. I didn't say anything right away, just let the words sit. He continued. "Thought you'd want to know. Your file helped. A lot. My contact at Homeland said your report read like a full-blown internal audit. Said it's one of the cleanest takedowns they've seen in months." "Thanks," I said quietly. "But this wasn't about revenge." "I know," he said. "It was about your daughter." After we hung up, I stood at the window and watched Sarah playing in the yard, her elephant tucked under one arm, the therapy ball finally back on the grass. She was safe. Her laugh echoed across the street. Karen was done. The fake authority, the threats, the lies. Her picture was all over the news now. Former HOA leader impersonates official, faces federal charges. But what really struck people wasn't her fall. It was the fact she tried to break someone who wasn't broken. The story went viral, not because of the drama, but because of one quote the media latched onto, taken from my statement. "I didn't fight cyber threats for this country so some HOA bully could terrorize my disabled child." That line hit something deep. Freedom, family, justice, and maybe, just maybe, a little hope that the quiet people, the ones no one sees coming, can still win. Sarah waved at me from the yard, and I waved back, because this was our home, and no one was taking it from us again.